Live. There we go. Hey, everybody. It's Jay and Monica from FabFit Over 40, and we are here today on our, I think this is our fourth Google Local Hangout. Obviously, Scott Solaria is the host in studio, and we are very excited to have him here. Both of the doctors, I think, are going to be joining us and calling in when they can. They both have hospital stuff going on today, so a little bit of
saving the world, those docs.
Saving the world.
Yeah. They're saving lives.
Hey, everybody, it's Jay and Monica.
Really?
FabFit Over 40.
Oh, do you have that?
On our, I think this is our fourth. Yeah, it's me.
Is that the YouTube delay?
Yeah, that is hilarious.
That was awesome.
Technical difficulties.
Oh, it's still going, Jay. It's still going.
What the hell? See what I mean? That's what Google says. Okay, sorry. Technical difficulties.
All right, we're good now. Good thing no one's watching yet.
That shit, right? Okay,
back to our show.
Back to the show. So anyway, we wanted to just talk a little bit about what happened recently. We were actually offered from Ironman Magazine and their new ownership and management. Dr. Osborne and I were offered a monthly column, which is going to start probably sometime in May, I think, for May's issue, which is really right around the corner because the way the magazines work is they're kind of 2 months behind or 2 months in advance of where you actually are. So we're really honored and very humbled and excited about that.
So tell, like, for someone that's familiar or semi-familiar with Ironman, what's a little background about that magazine, or tell a little bit about that.
Sure. So Ironman Magazine is probably, I guess, going today. It's definitely in the top 3 like fitness / bodybuilding lifestyle magazines in the world. I think it's the oldest running. It was owned by John Balick. Or Balick, I think is how you pronounce his last name, probably since the 40s. Almost every famous fitness person, bodybuilder, anyone who's ever been involved in fitness, a lot of Hollywood celebrity people, they've been on the cover of the magazine. It's honestly a very, very established magazine. It's still today, in today's day and age, has almost 82,000, from what I was told, monthly subscribers around the world. It's, again, a really, really high-end, very glossy, really, really premium magazine. They have really good content. It has awesome content. It's not just for guys, and bodybuilding guys, but for fitness people. And what Brett and I are going to be getting in the magazine is kind of a monthly feature on maintaining your fitness, into your 40s, 50s, 60s, and on. And, we'll discuss doing that through hormonal optimization, anti-aging supplementation, and cutting-edge medical science. I mean, that's kind of the angle that we'll take. So we're really, really excited, very humbled to be given this opportunity because it's a really great vehicle to promote our brands.
Yeah,
awesome. So, all right, guys, go over what we're gonna learn today. So, go over the three things. You remember, Jay, exactly what we're going to be covering?
Yeah. So so the first thing we wanted to talk about is designing a weight training program or a resistance training program for anybody, regardless of your fitness level. The second thing we want to discuss is tweaking your body composition, so getting you into the best shape possible through hormonal optimization. And then thirdly, and maybe most importantly, we want to talk about alcohol and its effects on trying to maintain your health and fitness.
Awesome. So let's get into designing a workout or program for any level of fitness. So I mean, that is going to span a wide range of people depending on where they are in their fitness, if they're just getting back into it, what they're if they're overweight or they're thin or whatever the case may be. So how do you even start, designing a workout program for somebody? Where do you start? What's the first step?
Well, I think the first step I would say is them defining their goals, because a person's got to know what they want, and then I think the workout can be based on that. Jay and I just started, it's been about, 3 weeks?
Yeah, it's actually our 4th week.
Yeah, our 4th week doing Dr. Osborne's workout, and let me tell you, bam, that is an intense workout, and we are literally feeling it, and I definitely can see changes as well. So first, I would say is define your goals, and then
Yeah, actually, Dr. Osborne just texted me, and he said he's going to be joining us in about 20 minutes. He's got hung up in the OR, but he's going to be here for sure in about 20, 25 minutes. So anyway.
Isn't that cool how they're providing and investing their time with us, and honestly, they're out there saving lives and making a difference. And honestly, I feel privileged to even have them come on and talk with us.
Yes, I agree. But back to the question.
Sorry.
It is humbling. So, I agree, Monica.
No, it is.
I just had a little ADD spurt, that's all.
And they're honestly, too, and they're very, very, very famous and very renowned physicians in what they do. So, I mean, it really is awesome for them to share, their knowledge and their insights with us. But, to get back to what you were saying, Monica's right. It definitely comes down to your goals, but I'd like to look at it from a bigger, maybe more of a macro standpoint, and that is that regardless of your age, regardless of your fitness level, anybody, any weight program or any resistance training program, the way it's designed, it should be designed in a way that again, regardless of your age, regardless of your fitness level, you should be able to use it to your advantage. And what does that mean? Well, any good weight training or resistance training program should be designed to build muscle. In the process of building muscle, it should be, because as you build muscle, you lose body fat, you change your body composition to get leaner and more muscular, which increases the way your body becomes efficient at metabolizing the food that you eat. So taking all those things into consideration, the program that Monica just mentioned, that Dr. Osborne created in his book, Get Serious, which, as we've talked about on many of our shows, we recommend that book highly. It's an amazing book. Everybody, again, regardless of fitness level, should buy that book and read it and learn all the things that he offers in there.
It could be your fitness Bible.
Him and I are actually writing Get Serious Volume 2, which we're going to call Advanced Strategies, which is even going to be more of a Bible than the first book, because we're going to go over all the things that were left out in the first one and then add to stuff. So it's going to be an awesome book. That's coming out later this year. But his training program, and Dr. Osborne has talked about this on the show before, it's really encompassing of 2 days a week that you work out with weights, Monday and Friday. Now, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be Monday and Friday, but you're basically going to be splitting your weight workouts 4 days apart, okay? Now, the average weight training program out there for bodybuilding, fitness, CrossFit, all that stuff is going to train more, okay? Meaning there's going to be more volume. You're going to be in the gym hitting the weights more often. Now, and Dr. Osborne will agree with this, it doesn't really matter how many days a week you train. It always comes down to actually the intensity with which you train. But we're finding ourselves, and again, I'll be 44 in a month and Monica's 43, and we've been doing this a long time. We're finding ourselves that this program is incredibly efficient at utilizing everything that you have in 3 days a week. So you train with weights on Monday. On Wednesday, like today, we already trained early this morning. You do more of an anaerobic kind of workout where you do, as Dr. Osborne would call it, he calls it pushing or pulling modality. So, like, for example, what it is we carry dumbbells, really heavy dumbbells, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and then finish with like superset of pull-ups. So you do that or something like that on Wednesdays, and then on Mondays and Fridays you do your weight workouts. Now, your weight workouts are anchored or by staple movements, as Dr. Osborne would call them. He would call them the power movements, okay? On Monday, you do bench press and you do deadlifts, and you do them back-to-back. And then on Friday, you do overhead press, so barbell overhead press with squats, okay? Now, the beauty of his training program is that every other week, those Monday and Friday staple movements are rotated so that 1 week you're doing 5 sets of 5, and you rest 3 minutes in between sets, and then the follow-up, which is called your secondary exercise, you're only doing 3 sets, but you're doing 8 reps, and you're taking only 60 seconds to 90 seconds rest in between set. So what you're doing, and I'm trying to keep this very lay and not to get too detailed, but what you're doing, and this is why it's so effective, is you're taxing 2 separate energy systems in your body. Okay, when you take 3 minutes, you're taxing an energy system that is basically, it's not to get too deep, but it's type 2 muscle fibers, which are your quick twitch, your explosive, that allows you to build muscle, and it gives you 3 minutes rest in between sets. When you move on to your secondary lift, which if you're on Mondays, you do, say, your bench press, and then your secondary lift would be your deadlift, you're doing 3 sets of 8, so you're not doing 5 sets of 5, and you're only resting 60 to 90 seconds, and you're taxing a different energy system, which is your type 2A, which is explosive and slow twitch combination. So you're basically, to make it as simple as possible, you're taxing every energy system that your body is involved with in producing muscle and burning fat. Okay? So doing all those things and then super ending them from Mondays to Fridays, and then the following week you invert what you did. So if, let's say you did bench press 5 sets to 5, and you did deadlifts 3 sets of 8, again with those different rest periods, you then invert them on the following week. So essentially, as Dr. Osborne would say, every 2 weeks you should be gaining muscle, because what you're doing is you're attempting to lift 5 more pounds or 2 more reps than you got progressively the previous time you trained. So it sounds complicated. Dr. Osborne and I are gonna mass market this workout. We're gonna put it out there. It's already in the book.
Yes, that's what I'm gonna say. Like, I mean, obviously, I got the book just FYI a couple weeks ago, so I'm gonna start reading it real soon. I'm finishing up another one, but for the first couple of times you go out, if you're gonna do this workout or any workout that's new that you're trying to follow, I mean, what do you suggest? Should someone literally have a pad and paper where they've writing down exactly what they need to be doing and the time so they can really follow that? I mean, what's a really good way to kind of get that so then down the road it's just mentally in your brain, you don't have to really be thinking about it?
That's a great question, Scott. We're actually, Dr. Osborne and I are already in the process of developing an app. We're going to put it on smartphones so people can track their weights and track their progress in the actual app, which is going to make it so much easier. But to answer your question specifically for the hardcore people, yeah, just bring a tiny little notebook or index card or whatever, and yeah, just write it down and track your weight. So it's not hard to do. You can even do it when you go home, right when you remember it. But the truth is, it's my credo in life, and whatever training program I've ever been on in my life that I've been following, I would always say, again, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, right? So you have to record your progress, because if you don't, how are you going to actually know if you're improving week to week, month to month? Dr. Leonard on the phone. Hey, Leonard, how are you, buddy?
I'm good. Hello. All right, you got me for a little while.
Okay, well, just drop off when you can. We were just talking about designing a training program, but since we have Dr. Farber on the call, I want to skip ahead a little bit, Scott, because just real quick, we're going to have much more about that training program, both on the blog and in Dr. Osborne and I's marketing coming up for what we're going to be doing. But that program, everybody's going to know about it that pays attention to us, so we'll have more on that. But so why we have Dr. Farber, and again, thanks for joining, Leonard.
Sure.
I want to talk a little bit about alcohol, and I want to really, delve as deep as I can, and for as long as Dr. Osborne has on this call to discuss on, really what does alcohol do to your health and fitness, and how detrimental is alcohol, from a big picture perspective, to ever really attaining the physique worthy of like you being proud of yourself. Meaning, as you've always said, Dr. Osborne, a lot of people don't have aspirations to walk around having a six-pack on the beach, but to somebody who really wants to firm up and tone up and become more sculpted, especially ladies, tell us a little bit about alcohol. Like, where does it really stand in the big picture?
Is that for me or for Brett?
Yeah, it's for you, Dr. Farber. Yeah.
Oh, all right. So there's a few things to look at. I'm going to start a little broad because it depends on who is listening to this program, okay? So like everything else that we do, I always say if you are going to do it, if you have not committed to, let's just say extreme, you don't want the six-pack, you want to tone up, the problem in going completely without alcohol for some people is that it's not reality for them, okay? It's not built into their system. There's a lot of socializing that goes on, and they feel that if I don't do this, forget it. I am not going to do the dieting and the training because it's all for naught. So with that in mind, I would say if you are going to drink, you really need to limit it, things in moderation. And this is just starting generally. If you are going to want to go for that physique, the six-pack, so to speak, or really lean up, then you need to really limit it to almost nothing. And look, can you do 1 or 2 drinks a week? Yes, that's quite different than doing 1 or 2 a night. And as Jay knows, I am the self-testament to that because I always push the limits because I do go out often, and I always started in moderation. I got to a point where as I was decreasing my body fat, I would get to really different levels and different plateaus, and I really felt that in order to go to the next level, just eliminating the alcohol made the difference, and that's really well known. The issues with alcohol, I mean, you can go to really any website and find out, alcohol, every gram of alcohol you drink counts for 7.1 calories, okay? And that starts to accumulate as most people don't have one drink. And as you then start to drink more, your body's goal is to really get rid of the alcohol first. So you start to utilize that before any of your other calories. So what you're doing ultimately is stopping using your carbs for energy. You start not burning fat efficiently. In fact, you start to delay all of those processes. And in addition to that, you start to develop, in a sense, toxins from the metabolism of alcohol, and ultimately you really get into liver disease, which is important to really understand in the world of testosterone and hormone replacement. So the idea of, oh, I'm not going to have liver disease from 2 or 3 drinks a night, well, it starts to add up. And also, drinking alcohol starts to inhibit your sort of restrictions on what we do. We tend to get a little looser when we eat. And all of these things impact on how we then diet, and most people overeat when they are drinking alcohol. And it really becomes this cycle. Your appetite increases, your cravings increase, you lose your sense of being able to be restrictive, you add on calories. So there really is nothing positive out of drinking other than people enjoy it socially. Mm-hmm. So that's the long and short of it.
I got a quick question, Dr. Farber.
Yeah.
So if you start drinking at a young age, let's say, okay, can it directly affect like how your metabolism works in your body as you get older?
Well, everything we do at a young age impacts on the long-term efficiency of our body. So early on, for example, forget about alcohol. When I'm talking about children, hopefully there are no children drinking. Most of where we're going to be at a metabolic rate is determined, in childhood. And that's why obesity is such a big problem in this country, because we have obese children. And after the age of 5, any child that's obese is going to be an obese parent unless there's some radical intervention. So everything we start to do with our bodies as we're younger will impact where we are as we get older. That being said, there are people with super high metabolisms. They drink in college, they stay lean. I think part of it is, what we do to our bodies over a period of time is certainly going to affect where we are as we age. And that being said, if you are a drinker in your teens and 20s and your 30s, you're not all of a sudden going to stop at 40, unless you are committing to a lifestyle change, in which case you've already said, okay, I'm stopping. I'm going to embrace diet, training, nutrition. And anybody can switch things around. There's no permanent impact in the regard of fat loss metabolism. You just train harder. You work harder. If you're causing liver damage because you drank a lot at a younger age, that's not reversible necessarily. So, but in terms of where you can be within your physique, your overall health, if you stop, you can reverse a lot of the processes, and you can definitely attain what you want, but it may mean training harder, and certainly I feel that's where, hormone supplementation really helps for people who are over 40, their testosterone levels are lower, their insulin sensitivity is lower. That's where we really need to intervene.
And Dr. Farber, when you spoke, it helped me remember an incident, when I was drinking back in the day, and I remember what you said as far as in your teens, 20s, and 30s, and you can make a lifestyle change.
Yeah.
Is essentially what I did, because in my teens, 20s, and 30s, I drank, and I didn't drink heavily. I drank socially.
Right.
And it's interesting because I remember having conversations even with other women and it was all about, well, we still go to the gym. I don't care if I have a hangover. I'll still go to the gym, and I work out, and I'll still do what I need to do. And there's all these excuses that are associated with the ability and the need to drink socially because we become accustomed to it. Yeah. And what I've noticed, too, over the years as I age is that a lot of women and men, they start to change physically, like their skin. They have like this chubbiness in their cheeks.
Yeah.
There's things that I notice that are so apparent for people, and I mean, this isn't even necessarily people that drink heavily. I mean, this can be people socially, correct? I mean,
yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. And I'm the first to relate to you. Even now, where socially, I can tell you, I can feel the difference if I go out and have, it's a week of a lot of interaction and they're long parties, and they're medical parties. It's not like, at this age we're necessarily binge drinking, but right. A day later I can feel it. Yes, people say, you'll hear every story, right? Short term, yes, it's a diuretic. I feel great the next day. Well, I don't know anybody who feels great the next day. Right. But you certainly can lose water for that day. But your impact on everything, your carbohydrate metabolism, your fat metabolism, it's impossible, and it interferes with your absorptions of vitamins and minerals. Right. So it's really, really tough. And Jay and Monica will tell you, I keep trying, and I know the facts, right? So I will call and say, you sure I can't have a drink or two a night? As if
you want affirmation.
Yeah. Give me some new information that nobody has known over the past 50 years. And look, everything in moderation, except where you are at certain points. Bodybuilders, when they're pre-contest, do eat and train differently than they do year-round. So you have to set particular goals. The gist of it is less is definitely better. And if you are really going for that super lean look, which I'm pushing to the next level, the way to do it is really not to have any if you can. Right. If you have to, okay, if you just, I don't know what have to means, but you just say, screw it.
Well, I mean, I think people, what you just said, first off, excellent answers, but people do have to. I mean, let's just be honest. I mean, we live in a very, very, very structured world where people, go out in social settings with corporate, employees and coworkers and all these things, and you look retarded at times if you don't join the crowd or you don't, and Monica will tell you this, and people that know me, I mean, I'm zero alcohol. I've been zero alcohol for more than 15 plus years, and I'm a control freak and all that thing. But I mean, the reality is that you're not going to tell people. It's like writing, right? You can't tell people that they can't do something, but you can tell people that they should do this, to look like this way. But you can't tell them that they can't drink, because if you say that to somebody, they're going to be like, well, who are you to tell me that I can't drink, right? So it's not one of those situations where you can go out and advocate, if you want to get ripped or you want to get leaner or you want to improve your body composition, you can't drink at all, because that's just not going to work. Like you said, Dr. Farber, it's not just people are not going to listen to that. But I can say this. If you want to minimize the aging process, okay, and you want to slow down the way your body, gets older looking, like Monica was talking about skin, getting worse, and because this, Leonard, when you drink too much alcohol, when you drink in excess, it is a toxin, right? And so when your body is trying to eradicate itself of the toxin, the triglycerol and all the stuff that is coming from the breakdown of alcohol, it takes a serious toll on your body, okay? Yeah. And you can always see people that are drinking too much alcohol, like in their late 30s, early 40s, whose face looks 20 years older than they are, chronologically.
Oh, yeah.
So I always tell people, it comes down to you. What do you want to look like? Do you want to be that guy who's 45 or a gal who's 45 who looks like they got one foot in the grave, or do you want to age naturally / gracefully, by having someone that who clearly minimizes their consumption? And then that goes into the whole, which we can get into next, of optimizing your hormones, as Leonard said, because as you get older and your metabolic processes do slow down, the optimizing your hormones is kind of like an elixir, or kind of like a little fountain of youth type opportunity. So as long as you use alcohol in moderation, it's fine. Okay, but it's the depth of what people consider moderation, and you hit it best. 2 to 3 drinks a night is not moderation.
Yeah. And just to top off something you had said earlier, there are people who are alcoholics, obviously, right? But for those people who cannot control, I do recommend complete abstinence. I mean, there's no in between for people like that. So if you're going to be out socially and you feel the need to not have people look at you, that's your call, right? Some people just have the strength and fortitude to say, I don't really care what people think.
Right.
You just get a glass of seltzer and put a lime in it, so you feel that.
Right, they don't know. Exactly.
Well, to piggyback on what you guys are saying as well, in addition to, I think, physical, what alcohol can do to you physically, it's also mentally as well, because when I think back to the days...
Kills brain cells.
No, yeah. I think back to the days of when I was drinking, and it wasn't complete, like I wasn't every night like pounding or whatever. It was just, we'd go in a social setting, I'd be at a seminar, whatever it was, we'd have some drinks, and I would always consider myself a lightweight. So I'd have 2 drinks, and I'd feel a buzz, and then I would be a little crazy, and blah, 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 and then the next day you wake up, and you're like, what did I do? Why did I do that for? Why did I act this way? Why can't I have better control? And so your mind, my mind at least, would play these, like beating me up games, and sometimes, honestly, if your mind isn't in the game, regardless of wherever you're at, your fitness goals, anything, you're going to be your own worst enemy.
Oh, yeah.
Be able to accomplish your goals, you're going to be thinking to yourself, why am I doing this? I should have better control, or blah, 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 blah. Because let's face it, we all have this voice in our head that sometimes is not our best friend.
Yeah.
And we can do things that can help and can contribute to our physical well-being, our mental well-being, or we can, and I'm not saying, look, hey, I get it, I have friends, they want to drink, and that's fine. I stopped completely just because that was my choice. And it's been about 3 years since I've even drank. And
better than you've ever looked.
Yeah, and I feel great. I feel amazing. I don't need to be in a social setting and drink. I don't need to be in a bar. I can dance without alcohol. At one time, I didn't think I could dance without having a drink because I don't have rhythm when I'm sober. And all of that is like, I'm not concerned about what people think of me. I can have a bottle of water. I can stand there and have a conversation, and it doesn't bother me.
I just want to make one more point. And then I want to get on to the next topic. And Dr. Leonard, again, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, you're awesome. Thank you, Dr. Leonard.
Jump off whenever you need to.
I think Monica is you guys are looking so super lean. I'm going to get off this call soon and go have a drink, I think.
No, but you know what?
Make sure it's a shot.
There's one really important take-home message, and I think it applies to Scott and really like that whole age group of guys and gals, and I'll label those people from say 26 to 35. Okay, and you already hit on it, Dr. Farber. If you have optimal genetics, you are naturally a lean person. You naturally metabolize pretty much anything you eat. You have a decent training regimen, you do some cardio, whatever it is you do, you can get away with drinking more than you should because of your genetic profile, okay?
But then tune back in at 40 because that's when it's...
That's where I'm going with this.
40 or above.
So I want people in that age group and that range right now who are listening to this or will be listening to this or watching reading the transcript say, oh, well, whatever, it doesn't apply to me. Yes, it does, and Dr. Farber just said it. In your 40s, everything slows down. There's just change that happens to you that you can't account for because your body is aging, your body's systems metabolically are slowing down. And so if you're that guy or that gal who's in their late 20s or early 30s right now and says, this doesn't apply to me, I'm going to keep drinking, well, guess what? Life is going to play a horrible trick on you in your early 40s. So the real take home of this is, again, moderation. Dr. Farber has a great point. Look, don't feel social pressure or peer pressure. Put a goddamn glass with water and soda or seltzer water and a lime in it, and no one's going to know.
Right. And the other thing too is, as you start to follow a lot of these programs of eating and dieting and training, you start to look better. I mean, that's just what happens, right? And then people ask you, what are you doing? And you talk about it, you say, and when you're out, and you're not drinking, they say, why aren't you drinking? You say, look, I'm making these great gains. People have respect for you. I mean, look, you're not doing it for respect from anybody else, but anybody who says, "Oh, come on, don't do it. Who cares? Have a drink." Those aren't going to be the friends that are supporting what you do anyway. And as you start to sort of congregate with more and more like-minded people, you're going to find that when you go out, none of you are really drinking. Or if you are, it's in moderation. And you're eating the same. And you're going to better restaurants and having healthier foods. And, you know, that's kind of how me and Jay, Monica, and Brett have met over, you know, this continent, is by being like-minded in our approach. And that's what you surround yourself with. And it's funny because this an observation, and then I'll tune out soon. I look at the different generations. My generation, now I'm 46, you know, we grew up with, we really cared about how we ate and we trained, and there were very few gyms. We talked about this early on. I think there was Jack LaLanne and like a rare bodybuilding gym. And we learned and we were driven, and my generation, I remember even in college as well, we started to go to gyms and we sort of set this pace, and Pumping Iron came out, and then years later, the next generation, and I watch the young 30-somethings, it was almost as if there was this, I'm rebelling against this super fit look, you know? Right. And I see this like generation of people not caring, and now I'm seeing that even further. I cannot believe it's
unbelievable.
Yeah,
right.
18 to 20-something-year-olds who are overweight. I mean,
you can't tell whether they're a girl or a guy.
I tell you, they're all round and soft. And if they're trying to prove something where they don't have to have a certain look or image, they're missing the point of the healthiness of that. And that's a shame, because, you know, for so long everyone was like, you know, we had this wave of, you know, to be a model you were anorexic or bulimic. We're well past that now, you know. We're all about the healthiness. And I'll tell you, if you eat right and you train right and you don't smoke and you sleep properly, you are going to look the way you envision yourself to look.
Absolutely.
Right. And sadly, right now, the generation, it's all about YOLO. You know, there's this thing out there, everybody's like about, you only live once, so you got to live it up and live it this way and do what you want. And what's sad is that we all age. I mean, if you're lucky enough, we all age. And we're all going to get to a point where we want to be healthier. And if you're not living that lifestyle, it's going to be harder. It's going to be even harder to notice changes. Yeah,
and I take the approach where, yes, you do only live once. Why not look your best, feel your best, live longer, healthier? This all catches up with that generation. You know, I have like family members who were heavy in their 20s and 30s, and now as they're getting to 40, what can I do to get into shape? Right. I think we need that mindset early on. I happen to be one of those kids at 13 said I need to be fit, and it's a shame that this generation, for a variety of reasons, of this sort of, I feel that there is this self-entitlement, things should come easy, so therefore I don't need to do it. You know, I'm going to protest against the skinny model thing. They're missing the point of being healthy, looking good, feeling good, and you know. But at some point, everybody, or 99% of people, realize that's not the way they want to be. They're not happy. I mean, eating poorly doesn't just affect your looks; it affects your way of thinking, your mood, your sleep. It's just overall, it's just not optimum. And this is what we're about, right? Is optimum health.
Yeah, totally. So Dr. Osborne has joined us. Thanks for coming on.
That's my cue. I'll leave you with Brett.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Leonard.
Talk to you soon.
Dr. Farber.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Yep, thank you.
Dr. O.
What's going on?
How are you guys? I'm doing this through my iPhone. It's
awesome.
Sort of cool, actually.
That's pretty cool, totally. You've got your scrubs on and everything, don't you?
Are you outside the hospital even?
No, I just left. Actually, I'm standing outside in the parking lot, basically.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Scott.
Thanks for being here, too.
Yes, thanks for joining us. So, Scott, you want to ask, so it's perfect segue, because the last bullet point, and then we're going to answer some questions, is optimizing your body composition, changing your body composition through the optimization of hormones.
Right.
So if you want to just just so you know, real quick, we talked about your weight program. We sung its praises, and then we just talked about alcohol and everything it is as it relates to fitness, and we covered them really deeply. So this is kind of the last topic, is just what's the best way to optimize your body composition, or what's the best way to improve your body composition through optimization of hormones?
Right. So the first thing that has to be done, I mean, obviously, is you need to get an assessment, baseline assessment of your hormones, and that's done by taking a snapshot of your hormones, or through the effects of your hormones, through basic panels, which I call sort of the metabolic endocrine panel that I usually order on all of my patients when they're coming to me for HRT. They differ slightly between men and women. Obviously, in women, you have to check progesterone levels in addition to the testosterone and estradiol levels. In men, obviously not concerned about their progesterone levels, but more so their testosterone and equally as important, their estradiol levels. So those are amongst tests that I order for hormone optimization and subsequent, for replacement. Some people order DHEA, some people order pregnenolone levels. You can really go crazy, but I will tell you that just by optimizing in a woman the 3 and in a male the 2 that I had just mentioned, you really can make very, very dramatic differences in somebody's lifestyle and their body composition and their profile, et cetera, et cetera. So those are the basic hormones that I order. The balance between those hormones, testosterone and estradiol in a male, and testosterone, estradiol, and progesterone in a female, is going to be a very, very big determinant of one's, number one, their muscularity and how much body fat they're carrying around. So it's very, very important to establish the goals of the treatments with the patient first, in the context of the laboratory studies, laboratory values, and then subsequently modify by placing them on various types of replacements. Some people will use transdermals for women. I use oral progesterone in women. I also use transdermal, a transdermal progesterone, but I prefer the orals for different reasons. But you want to use the transdermal estradiol. Stay away from the estrogen, the oral estrogens in females, because the metabolites of these hormones, particularly estrogens, can be carcinogenic. So we use transdermal estradiols and something called estriol. So it's E2 and E3 in a woman. And we use transdermal. I typically do not use injectable testosterone in women, because the levels are going to go sky high unless you use these micro doses. So it's just much easier to use transdermals. In males, I'm not really a big fan of transdermals, but if I don't trust somebody with needles, well, it's true. Then I'll use I'll use transdermals. They're not great. Okay, I certainly never use things like androgel and the Axiron and things like that, because the percentages of the or the bioavailability of that stuff is very, very, very low, because the percentages of testosterone inside those preparations is very low. So are very low. So I typically will use bioidentical compounded testosterone, and I'll start off with 20% cream. I don't even start with 10%. Just so everybody who's watching knows, androgel, when I last checked, was 1.62%. So I'll start with something that's 10 to 15 times the strength of that, and still sometimes I can't even get them up to levels that I like when I go and I do my reassessments. So I use the injectables, and that brings me to another point. When you are doctoring these individuals, it's very, very important for those individuals that are non-physicians out there, that are the patients on the patient side. It's very, very important that you have a good rapport with your doctor, because, all of my HRT patients, all of them have my cell phone number, because I want to make sure that I am in contact with them either via text or via voice in the event that they're having side effects, which are unusual, but more so to find out just how they're feeling. And I always tell them to give me an update, because with this type of stuff, when you're altering somebody's biochemistry and their body composition, what they look like, okay, and you're really tweaking the insides of them. You're not operating, on a part and fixing a part. You're actually changing their biochemistry around, and it can affect a lot of bodily systems. You want to be very, very, very in close contact with your physician, whomever that is. Okay, so this is a very, very important point about HRT that cannot be overstated. the feedback between, or the rapport between doctor and patient is critical with this, more so than it is if somebody's just checking your blood pressure every 3 to 6 months. Obviously, this is something that there are women. Women are a bit more difficult to manage with men, particularly women that are perimenopausal and they're bleeding and things like that. They can have hot flashes, they can feel lousy, they can have headaches, and they need a lot of tweaks. So you don't just put them on testosterone and in some sort of aromatase inhibitor and then just assume that they're going to do well, as you can with most men, because they do well. But women are difficult, and during different days in their cycle, depending upon where they are, whether they're perimenopausal or postmenopausal, you may be changing estradiol. And
women are difficult, period.
Did you say women are difficult?
Yes, they are. They're difficult, but you may be changing their
crazy.
Yes, you may be changing their estradiol and their progesterone doses, mid-month, and they may do great, with that little tweak. But if you kept them on the same dose in the beginning of the month, they do horribly. So there's a lot of things. You may say on day 1 through 14, use this dose of the transdermal, and on days 14 through 28, as an example, if you just break the month up, or as per the cycles, use this amount. And there is a constant modulation that has to go on in order to get somebody biochemically or hormonally optimized, as you had alluded to. And you know what? They may be not happy with their adiposity, their fat, okay, because you've put them on a little bit too much, say, progesterone. That's very, very possible. So you need to talk to them. They may not feel well. They may feel great. It's sort of this. You need to constantly assess and reassess, and then intervene and reassess, particularly with women, okay, because they're a bit more challenging to get sort of under control. But
really, go figure.
Yeah, but if that said, if you do, okay, both male and females alike, if you work with them, okay, and there's this constant ongoing feedback, you really can make a huge change in them, both from the biochemical standpoint, the mental the mental aspects of their life, and the physical, and their physical appearances. So right. It's something that I'm not going to tell you that HRT is unto itself this this miracle cure, this elixir, okay, of youth, or whatever you want to call it, but it's part and parcel of sort of this program, which encompasses hormone replacement, exercise, proper nutrition, and it all starts with with education. You have to understand, at least at a very, very basic level, what is going on, and do your best to educate yourself. And this is sort of the impetus of the motivation, for me writing the book, to get people serious about understanding their own health, and then being able to arm themselves with that knowledge and then go forward.
That answer was unbelievable. Scott, did you understand anything you just said?
A little, not really, but that's okay.
I'm sorry.
No, but what I was gonna say was, you said at the beginning, like, it starts with consoling a doctor and getting your panels done and your work done. Do you have like a network for people that are of doctors for people that are all over the country, essentially? Because obviously people aren't going to be able to come to you and be a patient of yours if they're not in your local area, right? So, I mean, I guess that's for both, for Jay and Monica too. I mean,
I'm gonna actually sort of bounce that one towards Jay, because these are the things that he and I and Monica have been discussing right now. When somebody calls me and they're out of state, actually what I usually do is I usually push them over to Jay. But that's sort of this recent, as of the past several months. What has happened historically is that you were sort of you were shit out of luck, basically.
Right.
Well, it's true. There were very, very few of us around that sort of had the knowledge, and really more so than the knowledge, the experience. To go ahead and be comfortable and be confident in their own abilities, and to take on this task of finally manipulating individuals' hormones in the cases that are, particularly in the cases that are more challenging. What I had done in the past was defaulted to the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine, who gave me my board certification years back, and they have a network. Well, they don't. I shouldn't say they have a network. They have listings of doctors that are by area code or by state, I forget what it is, where you can actually go and query this database and it will identify doctors that are local to you that are practicing anti-aging and regenerative medicine. But we hope to improve that. And again, I'm going to pass that over to Jay.
Yeah. So Scott, that's a good question. So let me just go back. Well, first off, to answer that, so Dr. Osborne and I are working on, and much more to come on this, but we're working on kind of like a national level consultative approach where, you know, we can take his brain and his ability to practice medicine in relation to modulating hormones, and also a bigger, more holistic approach, because there'll be other stuff like obviously exercise training, supplementation, nutritional supplementation, and then of course advice and all that other stuff. So Scott, eventually we'll have a program in place where people in California, people in Nevada, people in New York, people in Florida, people in Texas can consult with both of us. And so it will be easy, and you will be able to get those answers, and you will be able to modulate your hormones. But I want to go back real quick, and Scott, you can jump into it. I want to go back to your first answer, Brett, was amazing. But let's just take it in a bigger picture. So right now, what do you recommend, or what would be the age of a woman or a man who wanted to come to you and me to get an evaluation as to whether or not they needed to have some form of HRT administered?
Right, and that's a good question, and that really is, there's not an age at which somebody qualifies to be placed on HRT per se. I use an arbitrary number in males of 35.
Right.
Okay, but I do have individuals who, for whatever reason, require testosterone replacement at younger ages, and that's very, very, very possible. It's not so much that there is an age which qualifies or disqualifies an individual, but knowing the natural aging process, we know that the vast majority of men who are, say, in their mid to late 20s are already starting to decline.
Right.
So
Right.
I practice in Florida, so I have to be I have to have some sort of safety margin here, and I've just come up with this arbitrary age of 35. But that is not set in stone at all. And if you meet criteria, both clinical criteria and serologic criteria, so if you are showing signs of hypogonadism at a younger age, number one, that should be worked up and potentially need an MRI of your brain, or you should be seeing a urologist. Barring any problems that are identified during that workup, if you still qualify and there's nothing that's fixable, so to speak, elsewhere or by virtue of another medical modality, then absolutely, if you have the symptoms and you have the numbers that sort of match up, and oftentimes they do, then you certainly qualify. So my answer to your question is it doesn't really matter upon the age. It matters upon these. It matters. What matters are the symptoms,
Right.
and as to whether or not you have the numbers which support. And I'm talking about the lab numbers which support your clinical diagnosis. But primarily, hypogonadism is not. And this is males and females. It is not an age. It is not you have to have certain numbers to be put on testosterone. In other words, there's no discrete cutoff. You need a total testosterone of less than 300, which is what the as an example, the governing bodies of medicine try to do. They say you shouldn't be prescribing testosterone, or clinical hypogonadism is or serologic hypogonadism is a number of is less than this value for total testosterone or free testosterone. That's not the way things work.
Hey, Dr. O.
I'm sorry, Monica. Let me just finish this 1 second. It is a clinical diagnosis first. If you have the classic symptoms, even if you have a total testosterone and a free testosterone that are sort of in the 3/4 percentile, 75th percentile, that doesn't necessarily mean that you are disqualified and you can't be placed on supplemental testosterone. That's not true, because I've taken individuals that require just a little bit more, that need to be pushed up to that high end of normal, which is where we try to push everybody to that optimum number, and they feel 1,000 times better.
Right.
So there's no discrete answer. It's very, very gray. It's not age dependent. Okay, it's just based upon clinical, which oftentimes is backed up by the serologic numbers. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Well,
it does. Monica's got a good question, though, related.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I have a question, because some of what you said did not make any sense to me whatsoever.
Okay.
Because I don't have a medical background.
Okay.
And I'm curious, what are the symptoms for somebody to recognize?
What, you haven't read my book, bro?
No, bro. And even when I do read it, it doesn't make sense because I don't understand all of it.
So her question, very simply, and Scott, this is perfect for you. Scott, you're 32, right?
33.
33. So he just turned 33. So it's really relevant. So Dr. Osborne, I'll let you answer. I know the answer, but I'll let you answer. So what would be the common symptoms, male or female, someone in their early 30s, knowing that you got to look at labs and you got to evaluate a lot of things? What would be the most common symptoms that a male or female would experience or present to you that would make you think that indicative they may need HRT?
Right. And these are symptoms that are going to sound ubiquitous, and people that are watching are going to say, oh, that's me. That's me. And you know what? You're damn right. It probably is. If you're 30 years old, you're already sort of experiencing these symptoms, and these symptoms are a byproduct of our aging, or maybe our aging is a byproduct of the fact that our hormones go down. You never really know. We don't really know the chicken or the egg answer. Okay. Right. We haven't figured that out. We probably never will. Nevertheless, in response to the question, we typically hear things like, I'm tired. I have to take a nap in the afternoon. I don't have the energy to go and work out. My libido is down. I can't put on muscle mass like I used to. I'm gaining abdominal fat. What's going on? I have these. I'll use it the politically correct term. I have man boobs.
Right.
I have sleep problems. Women sometimes I can't sleep well. Women sometimes have headaches, depression, abnormal bleeding. You can just go on and on.
Right.
And somebody else will tell you that, well, those are just symptoms of aging. And you know what? As I said before, they are right. They are symptoms of aging. Okay, or they're symptoms of hormonal decline, however you do want to define, aging. Okay, but these are all very, very, very common symptoms, and they will happen to all of us. Okay, at every, at different stages, at different ages. Okay, everybody is individual, is an individual, obviously. So our biochemistry is going to be slightly altered from one to the next. But ultimately, you will develop these symptoms. You may be 45 when it sets in. It's like saying that people that are brain researchers. Ultimately, every single one of us, and this may sound sad and terrible and dark, but every single one of us will ultimately develop Alzheimer's disease, okay? Because in time, okay, this disease of aging, this degenerative disease, will get all of us. If we start living to 150, okay, you can be assured, okay, that you're going to have signs of Alzheimer's disease. Even if you didn't have them at 100, you will get them, okay, unless we figure out a way to better combat this disease. It's just like developing hypogonadism. You will. It's not if, it's when. Okay, and you may see some people that are more vigorous than others, okay, even into their ripe old ages of 70, 80, okay, but usually, okay, it's by virtue of the fact that their diet has been clean, okay, and they've strength trained all their lives. Why? Because when you strength train all your life, what you're doing is you're actually giving yourself boluses of both testosterone and growth hormone. So in essence, you're sort of on HRT all your life. Right. And that's why those people tend to look younger, okay? And that's why it's very, very critical to strength train and not participate wholly in endurance training, because it really, really does nothing to augment or better your hormone profile.
Right. So question for you with respect to that, because you're mentioning, what some of the symptoms are. What about the people that, this is what I hear constantly. Oh, well, you're supposed to allow your body to age naturally and not have any of this. What would be your response to someone who is, I've read this on responses on posts that we've said, a doctor would not prescribe that, or you got to.
Yeah, I'm to use it loosely, I'm calling bullshit on that one too. Right. Because you can decide that you can be sort of a victim of the aging process, or you can decide to use current medical knowledge and technology to combat the aging process. Right. It's wholly up to you. Okay, it depends upon. I don't force these medications on people. I give them the option. Okay, under the notion that they can make a difference. Okay, by using these therapeutics. Okay, which are basically readily available. Okay, to individuals, and or you can fall on the other side of the spectrum and decide to let the aging process take over and let this degenerative disease of aging ravage your body. I'm not here to convince anybody or sell anything to anybody. I'm only here to tell, that's like saying, when people say things like that, I say, well, you know what? You're destined to develop hypertension. You're destined to develop insulin resistance as you get older, because these are age-related changes. These are due to as an example, in the context of hypertension, high blood pressure. This is an age-related change. As our arteries get older, they become stiffer. So does that mean, well, don't go on any antihypertensives and just let your arteries become hardened? No. That's like saying, well, don't even bother taking any medications. These medications are no different than any other medications. They're no different than controlling your blood pressure. We are treating a disease here. Just like hypertension is a disease, aging is a disease. Period.
Right. So real quick, I mean, that answer was amazing. So
Thank you.
Scott, so for everybody watching this show, and again, reading the transcript, because we're going to have a lot more people that are going to watch this in the past and the rewind version, and then in the future, I'm sorry. Rewind perspective, and then also reading the transcript. I think we just lost Brett. He'll probably call right back. But you can go to our website, fabfitover40.com, and click on Ask or Consult with Dr. Osborne. It sends a message directly to me. I forward it on to his nurses. There is a way that you can consult with him now. We explain that. I'm not going to waste time right now to discuss that, but you can definitely consult with him now, no issues. And then eventually we're going to have a global/national way where, regardless of where you live, you'll be able to meet with either him or a surrogate and get an entire holistic program designed for you based on your individual needs, wants, and obviously blood levels. So, with that said, I just printed out some questions. Hopefully you can call back up. If not, we can answer these ourselves. Are you okay to go a couple minutes over, Scott?
Yeah, totally. And I think that's a big value add, Jay, is like there's so many people out there, man, especially with this stuff. And if you're if you don't really have the knowledge yourself to know that you can trust someone or a doctor already and be able to work with that person rather than having to go and try to find one that you don't know. You just don't know if they're going to be handling your situation the right way.
And hey, Scott, I get it completely because most people out there don't have, like, I am so fortunate. I have Jay, and we have Dr. All these great things. But honestly, when I read some of the things that they write, I'm looking at it and going like, because even if you do research it, because we can all Google stuff, you look at it and you're like, huh? It's confusing, so you want to trust somebody, and you want to make sure that they're doing what's best for you. So
there he is.
Sorry, guys.
Okay, so here we go. So they're gonna stay after. So, dude, I have like 8 amazing questions, and I want you to answer them. And as I was thinking about this, what we're gonna do, Scott, in the future is we're gonna do a lot of Q&A with Brett and Leonard, where I'm gonna send them questions, and I'm gonna actually allow them to answer them, and we'll post them on the blog, and then we'll discuss them on these topics. But first question. So I'm currently around 15% body fat. I'd like to be in single digits for body fat. This is for Dr. Osborne, obviously. But I also want to gain muscle, quote-unquote bulk. My question, is it possible to reduce body fat while gaining muscle? I ask because in the previous video, Dr. Osborne implied that it wasn't. He said that you should focus on getting your body fat down first and then worry about muscle later. Did I interpret him correctly?
Right. As I said, yes, you did interpret my statement correctly. The body is either anabolic or catabolic. It's not both. It's never both. It's impossible for it to be both. You're either building, putting building blocks into your muscle or into your fat, okay, or you are digesting them, so to speak, or degrading them, okay, in order to use them for energy. When you are on a quote-unquote diet, I don't like that word, you are, by definition, if you are dieting correctly, catabolic. You're catabolic. So you're losing skeletal muscle, mass, okay, and you're also losing fat. You're hoping that you don't lose a lot of skeletal muscle and you lose more fat. But oftentimes, as you know, people that go on diets, they end up looking wasted almost because they've lost their muscle bulk. And that's because they're not anabolic, but they're catabolic. So the answer to your question is yes. It is impossible to do both at once, but with advanced types of protocols, okay, like carbohydrate cycling, you can do these things, okay, but it is novice, okay, and that it involves modulating or changing your carbohydrate load, your daily carbohydrate load, literally on a daily basis. And that's a topic that I'm not even going to get into. It's possible to do this on-off switching, okay, and put on muscle, okay, or change your metabolism over from anabolic to catabolic, okay, very, very rapidly. But again, it is not for the inexperienced. The easy way to do things, okay, which is what bodybuilders do, okay, because it's easy, is they bulk up during the off season,
Right.
okay, and then what they do, so they're anabolic, they're putting on fat and muscle, and they don't care. They can eat pizza, they can eat whatever they want, okay, and as long as that muscle is going on. And then what they'll do is during the contest season, they'll take 8 weeks, 12 weeks, 16 weeks, depending upon an individual's body and how well they know their body and how much time it's going to take, therefore, and they will go basically on a ketogenic diet, okay?
Right.
The goal is, and again, I assume you're going to be a professional bodybuilder, but the goal is to shed fat, but not shed a lot of muscle.
Right.
And that is a very, very difficult thing to do. And it takes a lot of experience and really a lot of experimentation. You have to, year after year, you have to figure out exactly how much working out you need to do, how much training you need to do, what type of training you need to be doing, how much water you need to be drinking on a daily basis. You need to know exactly how your body responds to carbohydrates. Some people can get away with maintaining muscle mass on their body, and they'll still be eating, losing fat, and they'll still be eating tons of carbohydrates. Okay, it just depends upon how well you know your body. But again, as a general rule, okay, my goal for the populace en masse basically would be just to diet down, if you want to use that word, to the body fat that you like, okay, so that at least you have that leanness, and then go about adding muscle and try to keep it as lean as possible. How are you going to do that? Well, when you get yourself down to the 6% body fat, the 8% body fat, wherever you like to be, okay, what you then want to do is you're going to generate a slight caloric surplus. And this is something that we can talk about another time. You're going to generate a slight caloric surplus, but you're going to keep riding that fine edge between not putting too much carbohydrate into your body, and if so, putting the proper type of carbohydrate into your body in order to generate just enough insulin so that you stay over the edge of anabolism and not become fat. Okay, and again, that is a difficult thing to do. In other words, to get yourself lean and then to start adding muscle slowly without adding too much fat. Again, experience, but it's possible. But in the context of health, okay, my recommendation would be to get the body fat off you first, okay? Right. Not shed a lot of muscle if it's possible, but making sure that your protein is high, you're eating a lot of protein, not starving yourself, okay, which is going to really, really shed a lot of fat and muscle, okay? So keep that protein up. A gram per pound per day, okay, of protein at a minimum, okay. Push that protein up, okay, and that's going to a great degree preserve some of the musculature. You're going to lose muscle, okay, when you are dieting down, okay, but make sure you push that protein up, okay, in addition to keeping those carbohydrates down. The key to losing fat is to drop those carbohydrates down, and I usually sort of use this magic number, 150 grams per day is a good start, and then you can slowly creep it back, okay, but don't drop your calories to 800 calories a day. You're not gonna fare well doing that, okay. You're gonna
that answer was so good. I'm gonna I can't wait for the transcript on that because I'm gonna tweet that like 100 times. All right, 2 more questions, Scott. I know we gotta wrap up. I promised these guys I'd get these questions answered. So this is a good one on metformin. I've been using 500 milligrams metformin AM and PM for 6 weeks now. I have experienced a reduction in my waist size and leanness. It works amazingly well. At what point, if ever, should I consider increasing my dose to 1,000 milligrams twice a day, meaning AM, PM? I work late and I need to eat when I get home. Does taking it at night with a light protein meal or shake decrease its effectiveness?
No, it does not. I will use metformin completely on an empty stomach, okay, before bed, without any issues. You definitely don't need to eat around the same time as your metformin, but oftentimes I do. Gentlemen, I'm just going to put you on hold just for 1 second here.
Yep. Was it?
Yes.
Awesome. Awesome. All right, so I don't want to keep. I don't know how long it's got.
Yeah.
It looks like somebody just walked up to him, so I don't want to keep you.
Hey,
he comes
guys.
up.
No, sorry.
Yeah, okay,
Guys.
keep going. Keep going.
Guys.
Yep.
Yeah, we're here.
So anyway, it's totally fine. Okay, if you tolerate it from a gastrointestinal standpoint. Okay, to use metformin on an empty stomach. Okay, even though it's not recommended. It's not recommended by the manufacturer. Now I will tell you that it does not cause hypoglycemia. It does not cause hypoglycemia. It's not like giving yourself a bolus of insulin. Okay, so it's safe. Okay, for years I've been maxed out on metformin. As for not when to increase your dose to 1,000 milligrams BID or twice a day. Sorry, from 500 milligrams. I don't have a good answer. One very, very easy way to make that decision, however, is to check your hemoglobin A1C. Okay,
Right.
or check a glucose tolerance test. So if you're gonna the individuals that I write metformin for, okay, remember, I'm writing metformin for individuals that come to me, and they may have a hemoglobin A1C of 5.6. Okay, now remember, let me just reiterate. 6 is the number where we're starting to become concerned. Okay, 6.2 is where people are sort of in the diabetic range, at least on my scale down here. Okay, but I'll put somebody on metformin if they're 5.7 because I don't like the fact that with aging they are developing some degree of insulin resistance, and I want to be ahead of the problem, so to speak. So I'll put somebody on it, and I will try to get their hemoglobin A1C, if I can, as close as 5 as possible. So for me, okay, I run around with an A1C of about 5.2, and that's maxed out on metformin. Is my diet perfect? No, it's not. Okay, I wish I had a hemoglobin A1C of 4.7. As a matter of fact, I just saw an individual yesterday in my office for anti-aging. He's an avid runner. He does triathlons, as a matter of fact, and he has the lowest hemoglobin A1C I've ever seen. It's 4.7.
Wow.
Which is unbelievable. The only person I know that has something that's like that is people that are type 1 diabetics and actually use an insulin pump. So they actually drive their insulin, they drive their blood sugars down so low, and they're probably running around on the threshold of hypoglycemia all the time. But you know what? It's probably the healthier thing to do. So to answer your question is it's fine to go up to 1,000 BID if you can tolerate it, if you're not having any gastrointestinal side effects, and if your hemoglobin C is not where A1C is, or your glucose tolerance test is not quite where you'd like it to be. Again, I just want to reiterate this, okay? Insulin is a deadly hormone. It's an anabolic hormone, okay? But you want to run you want to ride that fine line between not having too much of it in your body, which causes all this inflammation, and having too little, okay, in your body, which will make you lose a tremendous amount of weight, okay, muscle, and body fat. So you want to run around with a lot of muscle on your body, if possible, very, very low body fat. And people that are out there watching may say that doesn't make any sense because you're talking about being anabolic but also being catabolic. And you know what? That's exactly right. And I get that question once a week at least via Facebook. How could you sort of ride that fine line? And the answer is check your labs, check your labs, check your labs. Make sure your fasting blood sugar is 70, 80. Make sure your hemoglobin A1C is low. Make sure your body fat is low. And at the same time, try to maximize that skeletal muscle. Okay, but the metformin is fine. Okay, as long as you're not having any side effects from it. Okay, and the side effect profile is basically the side effect of a sugar pill. Use it aggressively.
Awesome. Can I answer one more question, Scott?
Sure.
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. Ask one more. Is it the one that read Dr. Osborne's book several times? That one? Yeah. Ask that question for sure.
Okay, so this is a great question, Dr. Osborne, and just as fast as you can. I know it's a complex topic, but I don't want to keep us all on, and I know you got to get on. So read Dr. Osborne's book several times. My wife and I purchased a glucometer. I eat no sugar, no grains. I cycle my carbs 250 grams on training days and less than 100 grams on non-training days.
There you go.
Less than 50 grams on weekends. My body fat is 8.5%. I was shocked when my fasted glucose level measured at 92 and 90 the next day, respectively. This test was done as soon as I woke up in the morning after fasting minimally of 10 to 12 hours. My father has type 2. Am I headed in that direction regardless of all the training and careful eating I do? Are we all doomed to some degree based on our DNA?
Yeah. Yes, there is a genetic component. That's a great question. There's a genetic component to it. Okay, I talk about the Pima Indians in the book. Those individuals, nearly 100% of them are diabetic. are insulin resistant. So there is definitely a genetic component to it, okay? But just like with aging, like I always say, you know, I always say that aging is maybe 20-25% genetic, and the other 75-80% is environmental. And environmental, I'm not going to go into it, but it's nutrition, it's diet, it's exercise, it's everything that we are exposed to. Now, and I don't want to go crazy with this, okay, because it's sort of a medical question, okay, but in the context of what was said, I train 5 days a week, blah, blah, blah. My first thought, okay, when I hear that somebody has glucose levels that are that high, in the context of training fairly aggressively, and Jay, you and I have had conversations about this many, many times, is that I would bet you at least one of my hands, and for a surgeon that's a lot, okay, I would bet you one of my hands that individual is overtraining.
Okay.
And what you're seeing is a response that's mediated by cortisol release, and she should check her cortisol because, as you know, when you give somebody a blast of steroid of a glucocorticoid, it generates a sugar response, a hyperglycemic response. It's like a fight or flight type of thing. Okay, so the body is preparing to fight. Okay, so it's probably a function of overtraining. That's number one. Number two, if it's not, it could be something that's called, and this is going to sound nuts, okay, but you do have these phenomena in the body that occur. Typically, we talk about them in diabetics. There's something called a Dawn phenomenon and a Somogyi phenomenon, SOMOGYI. Those are that's a name, obviously, which has to do with a hyperglycemic response to low sugar that occurs at night as a result of giving yourself insulin in the improper dosages. So you can have these odd things going on, okay, or you could just have insulin resistance, okay, that's developing despite what you're doing, okay? And you may have been much worse had you not been training X number of days per week. And these things, I will tell you, are hard to sort out. The way I would sort these things out as a physician, I would, you know, the 5 day a week training, whatever you said, Jay, there, I would cut that back. I would cut that in half immediately. And I would say, we're not training 5 days a week or whatever we're doing. We're going to drop that down to 2 or 3 sessions a week, okay? And the rest of the stuff is just going to be some very, very low intensity endurance work, or even cut that out, increase the sleep, better the sleep quality, see if the sugars come down. My guess is just by doing that, yes. If they did not, then the next thing that I would do would potentially be add some low dose metformin and make sure that individual is not eating that last meal whenever it may be, even if it's good 2 to late at night. I may even change the time of that last meal because she may be getting relatively hypoglycemic, and then she may actually need just a little bit of sugar at night. I know this sounds weird, okay? Maybe a little bit of something sweet, okay, at night, maybe 10 or 11 o'clock before she goes to bed, and you may end up finding that the AM sugar actually is lower. It's possible. Remember, I also want to make sure that the individuals watching this understand the fact that a spot sugar, okay, a morning sugar, an AM fasting glucose is just a snapshot, okay? The hemoglobin A1C and the glucose tolerance test are really where the money is. That's really going to sort of better elucidate and better characterize your insulin sensitivity, your insulin resistance, whatever you want to call it, your insulin response. Okay, so the fasting sugars are not so concerning to me. It's the A1C, okay, and the glucose tolerance test that really is where the money is. I use a combination of both things, okay, when I'm making a decision as to whether or not to add metformin to somebody's medication regimen. But again, you guys both know me. I'm very, very liberal with my use of metformin by virtue of the fact that the side effect profile is extremely, extremely benign. Okay, so I'm liberal, okay, and I would err on the side of using it as opposed to not using it and sort of ask questions later. But this individual that we're talking about, in all likelihood, just based upon what you're telling me with this training, you know, all day, all night type of thing, is probably overtraining. We all are.
Right. Dr. Osborne,
awesome.
man, thank you
very
so much.
Amazing. Thank you.
Scott, do you have anything else to say before we sign off?
No, I think we're good. Oh my God, man, what an overload! You're
Sorry,
unbelievable,
guys.
Doc. No, you're great. It's unbelievable.
That was amazing. That was so awesome. Yeah, I mean, people really helping. I'll get everything up and live, the transcript within the next couple days, and then Scott, you and I will talk tomorrow or Friday about making this thing.
Monica, I like the plyo boxes today.
Yeah.
Oh boy, I like it. That was awesome.
You can turn us off, Scott.
Thank you.
All right.
You guys.